You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome back to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 124. My name is Clark from 5Card Guys on Instagram and 5cardguys.com. Co-hosting with me, as usual, is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards. John's away this week, but he should be back for next week's episode. But returning to the podcast, making a back-to-back appearance, is Chris Begg. Welcome back, Chris.
Thanks for having me yet again.
Love having you here. If you missed the Friday episode, go back and take a listen because Chris shares a very cool story about how he got into card collecting at a very young age. I won't spoil that for you here. But as we also mentioned on Friday's show, Chris brings some extensive baseball knowledge, having competed in the Summer Olympics for Team Canada in 2004 and 2008. And we also discussed his experience in the World Baseball Classic in the inaugural 2006 year, and as well as in 2009. So that's, that was really interesting to hear about his experience. For this show, we'll definitely be talking more about baseball cards, but first, off the top, I don't know if you saw the video of Michael Rubin, the CEO of Fanatics, who stopped by, I believe it was at Burbank Cards this past week, and he saw a girl who was obviously a big fan and card collector of Devin Booker. And what Rubin did was call up Booker. I guess he just has him on his phone number saved in his phone. Called up Devin Booker on FaceTime so the girl could talk to him. And she got pretty emotional. She got pretty excited. And I heard Booker apparently texted Rubin after the call and told him that he would send the girl a signed jersey. So I thought that was a cool story overall. Do we need any more proof that Rubin and Fanatics is going to be good for the hobby?
Yeah, no, that just shows his character. And, you know, I was on Rubin's, Instagram page too. And just his presence kind of like, he's actually on the field. You know, this guy's the CEO of Fanatics, one of the biggest. Yeah. It is the biggest. It is the big monopoly. So, you know, seeing him in the hobby field is always a positive sign because he's interacting with the people that, you know, want the change, or these are the people, we are the people, right? So, you know, and seeing that, you see a lot of that, and I'm all for it. It creates a crazy experience for that girl, right? And it was comical because the Suns just beat the Sixers too, right? So it was kind of perfect timing and with everything. But like I'm glad it happened. You know, I'm glad it was recorded. Obviously he recorded it, but like, you know, a lot of people have to see the positivity, in my opinion, in the hobby. I think it's always good to, you know, focus on the positive things that, you know, that we have and where we're going as a hobbyist, right? So I'm all for it.
Yeah, it's funny, I watched that, and the older I get, the more emotional I get, and I like started to tear up a little bit just watching it. It was like such a cool moment, right, for that girl, and obviously she just was floored. She was in tears of joy and everything, right? So, you know, watching that was pretty cool, and you know, it made me think, if you have the power, if you're somebody who has the power like he does to do something like that, like all these athletes do, it's you know, I don't expect you to do something like that. But why wouldn't you do something like that? Right. Sure. You know, you just made that girl's day, week, year. Like that's a memory for life that she's going to have. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, I bet you Rubin felt pretty good himself. You know, it made him feel good too, right? So why wouldn't you do something like that? Like if you have that power in any industry and you can make somebody else's day by, you know, and that's not a huge act that he did. It was something easy for him. Call up somebody he knows in his phone that, you know, just like that. Just, I mean, she's a lifelong fan now, right? You're not going to be able to get rid of her, you know, as a basketball fan or as a Devin Booker fan. So why wouldn't you do something like that? That's awesome.
Yeah. Good story, especially, you know, coming off last week, we were talking about the retail king and scams that are happening in the hobby. So this is a good story to balance all of that out. And, you know, I was thinking when I was watching that, kind of in the bigger picture sense of things within the hobby, like if Rubin has all these connections, you know, and Fanatics is really actively looking to make the user experience much better in the hobby. Imagine what else they can do in terms of really, connecting the fans and collectors with athletes. And like you were saying, Chris, like, once you experience something like that, like it's a lifelong memory, and that's how you retain people in the hobby, right? So always good to see, and hopefully we see more of those kind of stories. Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on now to hobby headlines. So with Chris back on the show and all three of us having collected sports cards during the infamous junk wax era, I wanted to ask first, who did you like to collect growing up? Okay. And two, putting aside the extremely high number of printed cards during this time, which sports card or player do you think deserves more hobby love?
Oh, wow. For me, it was, I grew up on like 89 tops, 90 Donruss, like 91 Donruss, 91 tops, 90 tops Fleer.
Yeah.
From 89. That kind of era. It got me really into it. That's the only thing I could afford at the time because, they weren't that expensive back in the day. But yeah, like, that brings back crazy memories, but I think there's a lot of underrated cards in that generation in general. I think like a lot of the 90s guys get no love, like the Frank Thomas, the Mike Piazzas, even A-Rod, obviously with his situation, right. Still gets underwhelming, I guess, hobby love just because it was labeled kind of like the age of junk wax era was kind of like that early 90s, right? So, I enjoyed the experience regardless. Like it was such a, like Beggar said in a previous episode, like I would just look at every single card, the back, and study the stats. Like I didn't know what half of them were, but I knew that batting average over 300 was a good batting average. And, that's how I kind of, enjoyed baseball as a kid because it was such a new sport to me, right? So it's like that's how I learned the game. No way else, right? You learn it because you started collecting cards. So yeah, for me, those would be kind of like the I guess the underrated players that I see in the junk wax era.
Yeah, I miss those 700 card sets that you bought boxes to put together. Yeah, but a box cost $30, and like you said, it was inexpensive. But that was part of the appeal, right? That's why we could do it. That's why you could buy the boxes and go to the corner store and buy a pack. Now packs are $5 is a cheap pack, and you get the same kind of value out of it as you do with 90 Donruss packs. So it's like, which was one of my favorites, by the way, of 90 Donruss and the Nolan Ryan cards with the switched backs and everything, the Juan Gonzalez and all, like those are beautiful cards. So I love those, and I liked 91 Upper Deck and 92 Upper Deck, the 90 Leaf. Like that set that's an awesome set with Frank Thomas, and if you're thinking about like specific players or cards that are underrated, I mean, we don't have to look much further than our good friend Sir Larry Walker. I mean, his cards are, how are they?
Is a Fleer?
So cheap.
Is his rookie card Fleer? Like
well, he's got a 90 Leaf as a night, like that's a beautiful card, right?
Super rare.
He's got like 90 Donruss. He's got I think there's 90 Score. So he's got a few there, but I mean that's one guy. Depending on how far back we consider the junk wax area, and some people go back to the early 80s, late 80s. I mean, I love the 87 designs. Like I love that 87 Donruss, the 87 Fleer, those players. If you go back even further, the 83s, the Gwynn, Boggs, and Sandberg, that trio right there. Nice. I mean, those are awesome cards. And, one I may or may not have just missed out on a 1984 Topps Don Mattingly card a couple hours ago because I got distracted by a squirrel or something and forgot. but that's one that I think I've got an OPG card, but I don't have the top. So I was like, I might try to find that one. So, some of those cards and some of those players. And,
sure.
One of the underrated players, I think, for me is Darryl Strawberry. It's funny, you know, when COVID hit and we're all stuck at home, one of the sports channels kept playing old Mets games. And I knew Strawberry was a freak, but I was watching all these games. They were probably, you know, 1987, 1988 games, something like that. This guy was, you know, he was a different breed. He just looked different. He could do things a lot different. And he came up to bat, and it was just like, man, he's hitting the ball hard every single time. And he could run, you know. Last episode, we talked about running and stealing and everything like that. That was a 5-tool player right there. Yeah. You know, so that's a guy. You know, I've got a couple of his 84 rookies, and I like those. Those are a couple of my favorites in my collection. But you know, I'm a big fan of those early 90s sets. They're fantastic. I still got my shoe boxes full of the common cards, and that'll probably never leave my shelves.
I love it. It's funny you mentioned like those 700 card sets back in the day. I actually completed a 1992 Fleer, the complete set. Like all 700 plus cards, and man, that I can't remember how long it took me, but you know, you went to the local card shop and they'll have those binders where you look for the missing cards. Finally did it. Still have it in one of those like 800 count white boxes.
Oh yeah, I've got a couple of those. I think, and the one that I can't remember what year it was, but remember they had the Topps Total set. It was like 1,080 cards or something like that. That's insane. Could you? I could imagine putting that thing together.
Trying to do that now. Yeah, yes. Right. Now I'm like talking about completing subsets of like 30 is the max I can do. You know, that's what I can afford.
Yeah, those subsets in those 90s were fantastic. You get the 91 Fleer or something like that, the Dream Team when they all the guys got their shirts off and all that, whatever.
Yeah.
91 or 92 anyway, but it's like, what were they thinking with these pictures? Holy Canseco could pull it off, but Kirby Puckey couldn't. It's like, sorry, Kirby, man, I love you. Big fan. Got your 85 rookies, but I'm not emptying the wallet for your shirt off card.
Inserts were definitely like the chase. You know, when it was the cool thing. Like, I think that's kind of underrated too. Talking about underrated stuff, right? Is inserts, like 90s inserts, because there was nothing other to chase. You know, it was common card or the cool inserts, right?
Yeah, I remember the Diamond Kings cards that were just
those were awesome.
Diamond Kings, or the MVP. Yeah, those were them. Those were fantastic. Those, right?
Yeah,
you'd be happy. Like I was totally happy with those cards, and now you get those. You're like, wasted it. Wasted a spot.
Yeah, for sure. I was looking through my collection, and I remember these are the ones I collected home run hitters even back then. You know, so like Jeff Bagwell, obviously.
Oh, nice.
Frank Thomas, obviously. I don't know if you guys remember Phil Plantier.
Oh, I remember Phil Plantier. Yeah.
He was my, like, at one point in my baseball card collecting history, was my most expensive card. Now it's like probably my cheapest.
Was it the 91 Stadium Club or what?
No, it was just like an insert, like a rookie sensations, like a dark blue border, and
I know it. I got the Juan Guzman out of that one. Love that card.
Yeah.
Juan Guzman.
That's awesome. Juan Guzman. But so underrated. I got a couple that stuck out, and we talk about this in previous episodes, and I don't know how you feel about this, Beggar, but we always say like pitchers are like no hobby love for pitchers.
No, you guys suck. Like we're willing to give them $30 million a year to play, but we can't spend 75 cents on their rookie card. That's like out of 5 or something like that. It's like that's too high. We admit there's no hobby love for pitchers. They're just too risky, and I don't know. Maybe it's because of injury risk these days. But looking at the junk box era, these pitchers, there are pitchers that have finished their established careers. They're Hall of Famers, yet for one reason, obviously high print run, but some of these pitchers, like if you find them in PSA 10 conditions, the pop count's not that high, but still it's relatively cheap compared to like home run hitters. So I'm going to name a couple. Okay.
If you follow a lot of baseball Instagram accounts, they'll show like vintage footage, or not vintage, but like in the 80s and 90s.
That's vintage now.
Yeah, okay. I'm talking.
Good Lord.
It will be for our kids, all right?
Yeah.
So, but Greg Maddux, Like if you see the way the ball moves, he's a magician. Like I just see some of his clips like on repeat. I'm like, how does it go from left to right when he's a righty? And anyways, 1987 Donruss rookie card. His pop count PSA 10 is 2,756, and it's going for $250. Like
crazy.
Greg Maddux.
Yeah.
Maddux was all time.
He's my favorite pitcher of all time. Him and Nolan Ryan are my two favorites of all time. Pedro's a close third there, but Maddux is a guy. I saw a quote actually thing. He's like, hitters want to know what I'm throwing around. I'll tell you what's coming. It's an 80-mile-an-hour sinker, and you're not even gonna swing at it. I was like, yeah, I love that. Like, it was such a good pitch. It's like, I'll tell you it's coming. You're still not gonna square it up. He was like you said, he's a magician. He was magical.
Greg Maddux is amazing, and like even when he retired, like I don't know if you saw him pranking Chris Bryant. Did you see that YouTube video where he dressed up as a camera guy? So he had like fake facial hair, and then the pitcher that was supposed to pitch against for Chris Bryant during this promotion, didn't show up, so they got the camera guy to say, "Hey, I could throw a few pitches," and Chris Bryant's like, "I don't think it's a good idea." And then Maddux is like just throwing wicked curveballs, and Bryant's like missing it, and Chris Bryant's like, "Whoa, this camera guy can
pretty
pitch."
Good.
Pitchers get a bad rap for not being athletes either, but I think he won about 15 gold gloves in a row or something like that, right?
That's
what I was gonna say. Yeah, like another Instagram reel I saw was him like fielding the ball, like making ridiculous plays on the field.
18-time gold glove. That won't be repeated again by anybody.
Yeah.
Like 18, maybe Arenado.
Yeah,
but not from a pitcher.
18 years though. That's a long career, let alone like gold glove career.
I would put Maddux at that Randy Johnson kind of, even Randy Johnson. These guys are the goats of pitching, right? Like I would put Pedro up there, but between Maddux and Randy Johnson, I would say there was no one who did it for as long as they did it and dominate, just absolutely dominate. And it was like that's what was fun for me watching. We got guys like Maddux, Smoltz, Steve Avery, all these pitchers, David Wells, Jimmy Key. We grew up on just pure watching like those kinds of pitchers. So it was a treat where like the era we grew up watching. So but sure. Like I think super underrated Maddux, even Randy Johnson, I would say. That's
that's a good segue because the second guy on my list was Randy Johnson.
Oh, nice.
1989 Fleer. And there's a variation, if you're familiar, the Marlboro ad on scoreboard, the one that wasn't blurred out. That pop count of PSA 10 is 108, and it's going for $800. Like I think that's such a iconic card.
That's the variation one.
Yeah, like the one that where you used to
I've
actually
heard
see
of
the
that.
Marlboro.
I've actually never seen that one, so I wasn't a
Fleer
collector.
They were all myths when we were growing up. They were all like legends. It's like the Dale Murphy era card, for instance. Like never seen it.
The Bill Ripken, right?
Yeah, Bill Ripken too was one of them.
Big one.
Yeah,
that seems like a pretty good price for the Randy Johnson one.
And a pop count of 108 for that specific variation. Yeah. And he's wearing an Expos jersey. Like, you know what I mean? All these things that...
How can it get better?
Add up to the value for sure.
Darts and poutine.
And speaking of Randy Johnson, him hitting that bird, I can't...
I remember watching that game too. Yeah.
Did you? Like live?
Yeah. I was so confused. I was so confused.
I think he was pretty upset by that, actually, if I recall correctly. He didn't want to be asked about it. He didn't want to talk about it. I think he felt pretty bad or whatever, for whatever reason. It wasn't something he was very pleased with. But talk about being in the wrong place at the wrong time with that bird.
Yeah. Well, again, with Randy Johnson, do you know he's a photographer?
I was just going to say that. I was like, he's an NFL photographer, right? And he looks the part. He looks like a
years
photographer.
ago. I think I looked at I think he's got a website, and I think he's done some nature stuff and everything too. He's good. Like, is he just talented at whatever he does? Pick up a baseball, throw it 100 miles an hour, pick up a camera,
I just saw
take awesome pictures.
Yeah. I just saw the other day, like I don't know if it was a Topps thing, but he was taking pictures of some rookies for Topps. So that's going to come out maybe this year.
The Randy Johnson parallel?
I was going to say there's going to be the SP of him taking the card is going to be him taking the picture of the player.
Yeah.
That's going to be it, man. Call it right now.
Love it.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. And I think they did interviews with like these prospects and rookies, and obviously they're like, oh, this is kind of cool. Randy Johnson's taking my photo for the baseball card, right? So, we'll update everyone once we know when that's coming out. But that should be a cool subset when it does. All right, the junk wax era, good times. Okay, let's move on to our next segment. We're calling Overrated, Underrated. And staying on the theme of junk wax era, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys a list of 5 to 6 cards or players during this junk wax era, and you just tell me if you think it's overrated or underrated. All right? Okay, so here we go. First on my list is, I got to start with Ken Griffey Jr. Upper Deck, 1989, number 1. Pop count is 4,131 of the PSA 10, and it's going right now, last sold for $18.55. Overrated or underrated?
$18.55. Pop count 4,000. 4,000.
Yep,
See, here's the thing.
4,100.
I would say it's overrated, overpriced, but it's Ken Griffey Jr. It's the kid. If there's anybody else, then I would say no. And that is, to me, that is one of the most iconic baseball cards ever. Like, ever. That was like the chase, the ultimate chase in the junk wax era. So I'm going to say it's underrated. Because he's a GOAT. These PSA 10 should be locked up in the safe. They shouldn't be traded on a daily basis. That's my opinion. So I'm gonna say underrated still.
Yeah,
All right.
I kind of agree with everything you said. Like, that card is so iconic. It's just a beautiful card, right? I was actually thinking today about, speaking, kind of blending the two things, some of the best photography on a card, right? Or maybe most unique, and that card popped in my mind, that image. But at the same time, I think I got to go overrated just with that price and that pop count and everything. I mean, it's not rare. Like, you see lots of good copies out there, right? And that seems a little steep for me. Maybe he'll get in some off-field scandal. That price will come down or something. We can get a steal at a cheaper price.
Well, do you know the peak price, Clark, on that?
I could look it up for you, but it's definitely more than the 2K that it's at now. But I think in a previous episode we did talk about that. This card, Ken Griffey, the Upper Deck that we're talking about, is one of, if not the most submitted cards to PSA still. Like, it's crazy. Around 50K.
It's a gorgeous card, right? It is just beautiful, and it just with that deck too, right? The Upper Deck that set the standard for years in the first year that it came out and everything.
Upper Deck was the chase, It
was unbelievable. There's so many nice cards. Like, one of my favorite cards that I've got is the Nolan Ryan. I think it's like a 3K or whatever, or 3X or whatever. The triple image or whatever in that card, and that's a gorgeous card. I think I got that as a gift, and I was like, one, he was like my favorite player, and then that card in 89 Upper Deck was like, this is a beautiful card.
Yeah, for sure. I just looked it up. The PSA 10 at its peak in February of 2021, it sold for $5,412.
Wow, and it's $1,800, eh?
Now it's $800. So over 50% off if you look at it that way. But I'm going to say it's actually underrated because what I just mentioned, like, there's so many cards being submitted to try to get this PSA 10, but it's leveling out at this 4K number in terms of pop count. So yes, I'm sure there's going to be more cards submitted to PSA, but I think it's going to be really tough to get it in PSA 10 condition. And then you add on top of what everything Hyung mentioned, and you mentioned as well, Chris, like, it's such an iconic card, not just for baseball cards, but for baseball in a way. Like, people just recognize this card right away. So I'm gonna say it's underrated, even though it is steep. If I had a lot more money, I'm buying this card. I had a PSA 9 when I first got back into the hobby because I just love the card.
Well, I've got a raw one that I might submit and then give you a call if I get the 10 on it. I'll give you a good price, man.
Oh, man. Okay. Do it, please. It'll probably come back a PSA 9 though, or 8. And there's a huge price differential, right? PSA 9's going for $200.
See, maybe that's your bargain. How many are those? What's the pop count on the 9s?
Just 29,618.
Holy, right? You don't want that. Yeah.
That's the difference. 29,000 pop count for PSA 9 and a 4,000 pop count for PSA 10.
Crazy.
All right. Okay, next on my list is Barry Bonds, 1986 tops traded. Tiffany, I believe, right? The 11T. Pop count is 444, and that's going for a cool $5,040.
You know what? You know my answer on Bonds. You guys already
talked
know.
about it.
And I don't obviously like
Hyung's
that price point. Yeah, I'm all in on Bonds. I think he's the greatest hitter of all time. It's not even close. There's not even a close first. It's Barry Bonds all the way. And I think, obviously Topps Tiffany was the set to get. Like that's the rarity. It's definitely a card that's overpriced, I think, still, based on the 444 pop count. But again, we're talking about these are select few players that I would, invest in for a long-term hold. We're talking, if I showed my portfolio, my sports card portfolio to someone, I would be proud to have this card in, and I wouldn't sell it, right? So for me, it's underrated for that reason, because the Topps Tiffany PSA 10, and probably peak price was probably around 10K, maybe less.
Over 12.
Or over 12. There you go. And I think the retraction of the, what we talked about the last, year, that we're going to see that 80% 90% retraction on some of these cards. I don't know if it's going to go down any more than it has, but there's definitely room for it to go down. So I'm not pumped at the $5,000 price at that high pop count, but I will still say underrated just because it's Barry Bonds.
Yeah, it's
okay.
definitely steep, but I think you kind of nailed it there, Hyung. It's where I only see more potential for it to go up. I mean, Barry Bonds in his career, obviously, we don't need to talk about the hitter, but all the scandal stuff, the steroid era, he's already hit bottom, right? Eventually he's going to get in the Hall of Fame, in my mind. I think it's only a matter of time. And when he does, what's going to happen to all his cards? They're going to go up. So, unless something else drastic happens. But so for me, whatever that price is now, where it kind of plateaus a little bit, maybe this is the plateau, maybe goes down a little bit, but eventually that long-term hold that you're talking about, Hyung, it's going to increase again. So I'm going to go underrated on that one as well.
Okay, interesting. I would say underrated if his Hall of Fame status was more imminent. I feel like I'm with you. I think he's going to get into Hall sooner. Not sooner. I think he's going to get into it later.
Eventually. One day.
Eventually, right? Maybe after 10 years. Like, I think it's going to be a little bit longer. So I think during that 10-year span, I think it is going to continue to trend downwards. But yeah, I ask me this question again in 10 years, I'll say it's underrated. But right now, at this 5K point, it's a lot. It's a lot.
It is a lot,
I think it's overrated for that reason.
160 plus WAR, 7-time MVP. There's 7 times. There's not one person that has 3.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
He's insane. He's the best hitter of all time. I don't know if he's the best player of all time. When you look at guys like Shohei right now and everything, what he can do, but he's definitely the best hitter of all time in my mind.
Yeah. Yep, agreed. All right, another pretty good, decent hitter. I put this post up on my Instagram feed on 5 Card Guys maybe a month ago, and I got a couple comments saying this guy is super underrated. So I want to see what you guys think. 1984 Donruss rookie card of Don Mattingly, number 131. Pop count is 310, and it last sold for 3,300.
Oh, man.
And Mattingly's our boy now, right?
You guys
with the Jays.
3010, right? 84 to run.
I think it's an iconic card. but I'm not like, you got to remember, I think I was a huge Don Mattingly fan too, because that was like when I started really loving baseball. He was a superstar and he was the guy. But with that said, I don't think I would have Don Mattingly in my PC, to be honest. I just wouldn't have that in my portfolio. So I'm going to say overrated on Mattingly. 3.5K is pricey, but I know there are some huge Mattingly fans, and you know he's a Yankees all-time great, so definitely there's value there.
Yeah, it's another iconic card for me. It's one I've got the raw version of it, and that's actually 84 Donruss is probably my favorite set. I think it's just gorgeous, even the non-rookies, but you got Joe Carter in there as rookie, but then like the Nolan Ryans, Cal Ripken Juniors in there, they're beautiful. They're beautiful cards. So, I mean, I'm a little bit torn on this one. Is he a guy that eventually gets voted into the Hall of Fame? I mean, it's not absolutely unlikely. It's possible, right? So is he a Hall of Famer, and do those prices increase? But, he's on that cusp, right? So I think I have to still go overrated just at that price. It's super expensive, but I mean, love the card, love the player. Glad he's with the Jays now. I think he's going to do wonders with that team and everything, right? So really excited about that, and but love the card, but I think it's a little steep.
Okay, I feel like Chris is sitting on all these iconic cards, and they're just raw. It's like
100%.
Submit them. What are you doing?
I'm waiting for it to be all AI.
He will never submit a card, or he will never sell a card, so it doesn't matter if he grades it.
I'm gonna get all my 90 Donruss Chris Sabos or something that I graded.
Chris Sabos.
Top one.
I want to see some Von Hayes.
Yeah. I got it.
Von Hayes. I'm curious. Well, that Donruss of Don Mattingly that you have, is it in pretty good shape or what?
Yeah, I mean, I don't generally buy things that are in terrible shape, but I'm not going magnifying glass on them. It'd have 4 sharp corners. It'd be centering pretty good. It would be no worse than a 60-40 centering or something like that. But they're usually pretty good.
I mean, that could be potential 3.5K for you,
especially if you think it's underrated. I'm telling you, I'm coming to you first, man.
Clark's your buyer.
Well, I actually think it's overrated. Sorry, Chris.
Okay, I'll go a little low. I'll go 2,500 for you.
But I mean, like, the pop count's nice. 310 for a Junk Wax era card, PSA 10. Compared to the ones we just talked about, Barry Bonds even.
He's 444, so it's not too far off.
Yeah, right. But I mean, like, I almost expected it to be higher than 310. Right. But I was looking at the PSA 9 value. If you got a PSA 9, Chris, if you submitted it, it's worth $200. So it's kind of like everything's $200 if it's a PSA 9. It seems. And the pop count's like 3,200 for a PSA 9. So
roll the dice on that one, eh?
But I think it's overrated for the 3.5K price tag for Don Mattingly. Okay, here we go. Pitcher, the only pitcher in my list here. All right, here we go. 1992 Bowman rookie card. Who I'm talking about?
Mariano Rivera.
Best reliever of all time. Mariano Rivera wearing his khaki pants. That
I'm going to give you a spoiler alert here, Clark. I got one in a raw.
Oh man, you just gotta submit. We gotta do it like
that one might have been packed.
Just bring those cards. Okay, so you should just bring those cards to Hyung Studio. Hyung will submit it. We'll film the whole thing. It'll be good content for 100% our channels.
Let's do it
and see what comes back. Yeah, all these that'll be amazing. But anyway, the 1992 Bowman Mariano Rivera rookie card number 302. Pop count for PSA 10 is 1,538. And it last sold for $620.
Underrated, 100% underrated. Like, I think he's the best closer of all time. Obviously, this guy has some record numbers career wise as a closer, and he's had a Hall of Fame obviously career, and 5-time World Series Yankee, all time Yankee, like. in terms of like what he's known for, where he made his presence. So that's way too cheap in my opinion. And that was one of the cards that were like, when I came back to the hobby, it was kind of like, oh, that's a really, really cool card. But I remember when that card was like a PSA 10 was like dirt cheap, like less than $100, you know?
Wow,
so
okay.
yeah, so it still went up, I think, in my opinion, the last couple of years. But yeah, I think it's still cheap with that pop count, especially with what Mariano has done for the game and who he is in terms of a Yankee.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm gonna agree with you on this one. I think this one's underrated. He was, in one word, he's unbelievable, and it was mind-boggling just watching him. What amazed me as a pitcher, watching this guy dominate with one pitch. And not only did he dominate with one pitch, he threw one pitch that was rarely a strike. He threw it up and in, out of the zone. Hitters knew it was coming. Good hitters knew it was coming, and they still could not lay off of it. It's insane to me.
Yeah.
That just, it's mind-boggling. And then, late in his career, this freaking guy goes and develops a two-seamer and starts throwing it with the, so he's got the balls breaking each way. And it's like, how are you? That's not fair. You're not allowed to do that, right? There should be your new rules that are implemented about Mariano throwing two pitches. No, you can only throw one. So, but that's what is so impressive to me about him. That card, again, I think it's, 92 Bowman, where they kind of revamped that design and everything, changed the stock, paper stock and everything. One of the nerdiest pictures I think you'll ever see on a baseball card, which makes it that much
100%.
better.
Yes.
If you say, hey, pick a non-baseball fan, show them a card, be like, hey, this is one of the greatest players of all time. The all-time save, they're like,
lean against the wall.
Yeah.
Look cool.
Come on. No, it's not. I think, yeah, that's it. Yeah, so I'm going to go underrated on that one.
Yeah. I mean, this is going to be an underrated sweep, especially at that price point. But like, to your point, Chris, like I was going to say, like, didn't he essentially create the cutter, like, or popularize the cutter?
Sure.
You guys want?
Right?
I'll tell you a great story here. Sorry, Clark.
Okay,
So it's
go ahead.
talking to our friend Paul Quantrill, and Quantrill was teammates with Mariano.
Okay.
And I guess in the clubhouse one day, Quantrill said, "Hey, Mariano, like, who taught you that cutter?" And Mariano said, "God." And Q kind of scoffed a little. He's like, what? He's like, you tell me that God taught you that cutter? He said, yeah. And Mariano's sister goes, who taught you that sinker? Because Q had a really good sinker, good two-seamer. Q stopped for a second. God. So he's like, yeah, I guess you're right. I guess it's just God given, right? So it's kind of a funny story. Q told us that one. I really liked
That's hilarious. Yeah, that's so funny. And like that pitch was like you say, people knew it was coming and they just still couldn't hit it. And how many clips are there out there that Mariano's broken how many bats? You know what I mean? Like there's so many bats he broke just because of that pitch.
When he retired,
right
didn't somebody, one of the teams, give him in his final go around of all the stadiums, present him with a chair that was made up with all the bats that he broke. I think that was a thing. Cool. That was like, it's a pretty funny gift.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, like that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, couple more. This player, if he was playing today with everyone loving home runs, I just don't know what his cards would do. But because he played in the junk wax era, things are different. 1990 Leaf, Frank Thomas rookie card. Number 300. Pop count's high, 4,250, but it's $119.
Oh yeah, super underrated, man. This was a big card for me. Like, just nostalgia all over the place. Like, this was actually one of the chases for me. Like, I remember this. Like, if you had the Leaf Frank Thomas, it's like, holy geez, you hit it. So it was kind of like that iconic card for me. It's ridiculous how cheap that is. I'm underrated on it.
Do you have any of those, Joe?
You know what? That's embarrassing. That I pulled one out of 10 Frank Thomas auto, and I sold it right away. I'm such a sellout. Like, I talk all this smack. Like, this guy's so good. Like, Frank Thomas is like obviously one of the best hitters of all time too. But yeah, no, I don't have any. So I'm going shopping.
If you want
tonight.
to get your hands on a 1990 Leaf raw Frank Thomas, I know a guy who's got one.
He's just unloading, eh? Just unloading.
Oh, man, love that card.
Grade him first. Grade him first.
I'm definitely going like underrated on that one. That's that set, the 90 Leaf. That was the first year of Leaf coming back, right? Since what was it, 1948 or whatever
That's
it was.
Right.
And there was a lot of hype that time for that set. And then they had, Frank Thomas, and we mentioned Larry Walker already, which I love that card. Sammy Sosa's in that set. Like, it was such a nice set, right? So
That's right.
Even like, if you want to talk about underrated players in the 90s, a guy like John Olerud, he's in that same kid, pick up an Olerud rookie in 90 so some cool cards in there, but definitely that Frank Thomas, like I said, that was iconic. That was a beautiful card, beautiful picture. It's usually pretty crisp, so I'm not too surprised that the pop count's really high on that. But I'm going underrated. Yeah,
I'm embarrassed to say I don't have a Frank Thomas rookie, so I got to buy one. And you know what? I do have raw though. You just mentioned him, John Olerud, $5.
Nice.
I've got a 90 Donruss Olerud that's hand signed. I get you that one too.
Sweet. Yeah, Frank Thomas definitely underrated, and especially at $120. I need to pick one of those up for sure. All right, here we go. 1992 Bowman Chipper Jones rookie card, number 28.
Chipper Jones. What do we have in terms of?
So that's going to be a second year card, isn't it? He's got a 91. He's got the 91.
Oh, that's right, 91 tops.
So we got second year.
What do you look at the 92?
92.
Okay, you know what? Let's switch it up, because I was looking at a website, and you're right. 1991 tops was his rookie card, right?
Yeah.
There's a variation of the Tiffany
he's got
Desert
the upper
Shield
deck and everything too, right? He's got 91 upper deck.
The Desert Shield is expensive one. That would be like your Tiffany.
How about this? 1991 tops, Chipper Jones, his base, PSA 10, right? Pop count is 5,722. And it's going for $100.
Underrated. It's ridiculous. It's criminal. This guy's a Hall of Famer. A career 300 average. Hall of Famer. $100. That's insane.
I think at the beginning of the pandemic, I picked up a raw one for $1.
Oh, that's crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
So I have one of those as well.
Nice.
For 5,000 for, you know what? I'm going to go overrated just to switch it up here. If the pop count's high, I'm not a huge fan of the 91 tops design. I actually like his upper deck one a little bit more myself, but if there are other options out there over that tops, right? But so I'll go overrated on this one.
Okay, I'm with Chris. I think the 5,700 pop count's pretty high. $100 for that, like underrated player for sure. In terms of the accolades he doesn't get from everyone. But as a card, I'm with you. I think it's
how can
overrated.
he be that good if your boy here struck him out in the 09 WBC?
Did you?
I did. That was my strikeout.
Do you remember your pitch selection?
I do. It was fastball. I can't remember the count, but we went all fastballs on him. And I think at that point, my shoulder was falling off. I was coming back off an injury and everything like that. My velo dropped down. I think we got him out on about 83 mile an hour fastballs. So I think he was surprised that I threw that many fastballs in a row. I think he had to be sitting something off speed.
That was when Chipper Jones was a dude. I mean, that year,
pretty impressive, Chris.
Previous year, he hit like 360
I was going to say he might have led the league in hitting the year before.
Won the batting title. So
I'll hang my hat on that one. So how can I spend $100 on his rookie card if he's punching out off me?
See, I'm saying I say 5,000 people, snag one of these cards, and you make a vouch that you're gonna lock it up in the safe.
Hey.
You know what I mean? So, and it's gone. It's gone. Leave
It's
it.
a lot of people, though.
Let's corner the
All right.
market.
That's what I'm doing on all the raw copies.
That's going to be tough because there's a million of those. So, okay, this is the last one. I'm just keeping going because it's so much fun. But this is the last one, and this is for you, Chris, because I know you mentioned it before. Jose Canseco, both are heroes. 1986 Donruss, his rookie card number 39. Pop count is 794, and it's going for $355.
I'll let you take this one,
Okay.
Chris.
So, I do not have this card in a raw. It is one that I've always wanted. And it's funny because I was just over at Hyung's place, was it yesterday, day before? And I grabbed a box of cards and was looking through it. And lo and behold, I see this 1986 beautiful Donruss Jose Canseco card. I was like, what? Sitting right, and it was raw. It wasn't even graded. He's in on the raw streak with me. I was like, this is a gorgeous card. So I know Hyung has one at his office there. So I love this card. I want this card. It is in my eBay search history there. And so I'm going to go underrated for a couple of reasons. One, iconic card. It's one of those that, man, in the hobby back in the late 80s, early 90s, this was the card. It was one that was counterfeited a lot. So they've got, those copies out there. And then the other side of it, and here's my hot take. I mentioned it to you before, Clark. Jose Canseco, I see him being a Hall of Famer. And, I haven't done the deep dive on everything here. Okay, but his stats, I think I know like power hitters get a little bit of love, right? What he did in the game on the field. Obviously, it was enhanced, but now we know that there were a lot of people enhanced. And my other side of it is if we look at what baseball players do to grow the sport, I know it was frowned upon at the time about him blowing the whistle on steroids, but that changed the game. That, him doing that has taken steroids. I mean, at least we think anyway, steroids are out of the game. Or makes it a heck of a lot harder anyway. So what he did on the field, combine that with what he did to, if you want to think of it as improve the game and keep it a level playing field, that might be Hall of Fame worthy in my eyes. So it's interesting. I know it's a hot take. I know he doesn't have a lot of fans, and I'm sure there's other things off the field that I don't know about. But I think there's definitely reason to give him a look to get into the Hall. So I'm going underrated.
Interesting.
All right, I like that hot take. I like it.
I will say Jose Canseco was one of my guys that I kind of idolized, looked up to. He was a guy that brought the element of speed and power to the game. Like 5-tool. This is like when 5-tool was like, whoa, like this guy's the real deal. He was one of the first 40-40 guys.
I think he was
guys,
the
right?
first
So
40-40 guy. I think he's got the
the first
89 Donruss card that says
Wow.
40-40 on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's
Amazing.
right. Yeah. And to me, he meant a lot in terms for me. So in my PC, you'll see it. I remember I pulled a redemption Jose Canseco auto. I'm not selling it. It means a lot to me. But with that said, I think a lot of newer collectors will be like, "What are you guys talking about? Who's Jose Canseco?" He's kind of irrelevant in terms of the hobby, in my opinion. And but with that said, they're all valid points where he's on that borderline. I would say the lower end of getting into a Hall of Fame. I don't think it's going to happen, to be honest. But that guy was a legend to us, an absolute legend. But from a investor standpoint and collector standpoint, I'm going to say overrated. He's overrated. He's not a Hall of Famer, but it's still commanding premium prices. So I'm going to say overrated.
Man, I'm kind of torn because
This was a good pick. This was a
I
good
know. I
pick.
get you.
yeah, this is a good one to end on. For years in fantasy baseball, my team name was always Canseco. Like I paid homage to Canseco for years and years, and everyone knew my team name because it was always Canseco. So I have like, this affinity towards him, and who can forget remember that home run he in the Sky Dome?
Yeah,
upper deck,
the
upper deck shot.
Yeah,
it was ridiculous. Like it's incredible what his power was, and but I get Hyung's point. Like we're big fans, but how many of us are out there that are just super fans of Canseco? And you know what? Like it's funny you mentioned that story about like him being the whistleblower. I always thought that was always in the back of my mind. Like people forget that. Like Canseco was a guy that really changed the game because of what he did there. But I don't know. He just seems to be a polarizing figure, especially after he retired. Like he's almost like had like this reality TV star status, like kind of really, doing whatever he can to make money now, and just like not as well respected as he was on the field during his heyday, right? So I think the shine has come off of him, especially since he's left baseball and he's become this, tabloid guy more or less. So I'm going to say he's overrated for the card, but that being said, I need to buy this card. I need to buy it. So it's on my eBay watch list too.
Yeah, I'm sure we can get a lot of them on.
Yeah, let's do it. For sure. I'm in. All right. That was a real fun, overrated, underrated segment. We got to revisit this because there's so many junk box era cards. So we'll definitely do this again. All right. Let's end off the show with our regular weekly segment we call Pick One. And if you're new to the show, this is when we each pick 2 cards or 2 players or 2 box sets, and we just debate which one we would rather invest in. All right, and as usual, Hyung, do you want to start things off?
Sure, I'll lead us off, and I'm not going to go cards this time because I want to do a little more discussion because we have Beggar here and, give a new perspective on this. So I'm going to go player. Okay. And, big news, opening day, Anthony Volpe makes this roster. Yeah. Very similar to Derek Jeter's kind of debut as a 21-year-old, just under 22 years old, starting shortstop, making opening day roster. And his prices have spiked like crazy. And he was kind of a Chase in the past, but not the original Chase. There was another guy by the name of Jason Dominguez who was a Chase in that same set. So Volpe was in the shadow, and then he blew up, and now he's in the big leagues. But then you have Jason Dominguez, who's a big-time prospect. So if I'm investing in one guy, let's just say whether it's $500, I have $1,000 budget, $2,000 budget, whatever it is, who would you invest in as a player? Volpe, who's made the New York Yankees roster, opening day roster, or Dominguez, a minor league player, right? Who's hyped up to be a big-time player, but hasn't really shown his potential. He's shown a lot of flash last year, like a lot of promising things this year and in spring training. Who are you guys going to invest in as a player?
You got an answer, Clark? I can let you go first. Maybe you can influence me.
I was like, I was hoping the same thing about you, that you would give me some insight, but because this is really tough, right?
I'll tell you what, I just recently sent our good friend Denzel Clark. I know Denzel played with Dominguez in the Arizona Fall League, and he said he's really good. So I fired a message, but hey, have you ever played with Volpe? Here to see if I could get some insight. But he didn't get back to me, so I don't know yet. So I don't know the word on Volpe.
Chris is taking pick one to a all new level.
I'm doing deep dive. I'm trying to get personal experience with it.
I love it.
Okay, I'll go. I can go though. I think I'm gonna go with Dominguez, and so this is a tough one, and the only separating fact to me was kind of what we've touched on here. Power hitters get love, right? And I think he's got more power potential than Volpe. So for that reason, really that reason only, that's why I got to go with him. There are lots of arguments for Volpe. Like you said, he's the starting shortstop for the New York Yankees. But and if I'm thinking about playing devil's advocate, maybe that'll hurt him because now he's always going to be in the shadow, right? So if he doesn't perform the way that his predecessor did, then is he going to get kind of slighted in the market like New York? So I'm going to go with Dominguez, look for that big power if he can do that. That short porch in right field, he swings. I think he's a switch hitter, isn't he?
He is.
But I mean, if he faces righties
Okay.
more, he's going to get the swing left-handed, the short porch in right field. He might put up some big power numbers. So I know he hasn't made it yet, and Volpe has. So there's maybe a little bit more risk there. But I know at least one of us in this chat here loves volatility and risk. So I'll go with Dominguez.
Okay. Actually, that helps me a little bit, Chris. Because I was just looking at prices. So I think Anthony Volpe, I'm just looking at his Bowman Chrome first auto, PSA 10, so for almost $1,500, right?
Yeah.
And that's definitely a spike up from even a month or 2 months ago. And Jason Dominguez has gone the other way. He started out with the hype, right? And it was going for $4K, and the last one sold for just over $1,000. So the Volpe and Dominguez just essentially flipped, right? And I don't want to pay those prices for Volpe. I'm not, good for him. Like, I would be stoked if I had Volpe cards like Hyung does.
I wanted to, but however, I wanted to purposely leave that out there because I didn't want you to base it on today's price. That's why I put
player. So the player only.
Yeah, player only. Who are you going to invest in?
Okay, then it's easy. Jason Dominguez.
Okay.
Because I'm going for the upside.
Yeah.
And the power hitter argument it's legit.
Yeah.
And is Volpe going to be the next Jeter? I don't think so. Like, Jeter's like high standard, right?
Yeah.
I know the comparisons are easy because he plays the same position for the same iconic baseball team. But if you really think about it, he's probably not.
If that's the expectation, there's really very little room for success.
Right.
Yes, exactly. So my comparisons would stop there. You're rooting for the guy, but people are paying as if he might be the next Jeter.
I'll tell you what, I did watch him swipe a bag today, and he looked really good.
He's good,
man.
And
he's fast.
me and Beggar actually, we were coaching the 2018 junior national team. This is down in Panama. We were getting ready for Panama, and they had Volpe and Bobby Witt Jr. up the middle. It's crazy because like that team was unbelievable. They were so good that year. But yeah, Volpe was kind of like playing second base, and Bobby Witt Jr. was playing shortstop. And to me, they've kind of come out like identical players almost. I think their gameplay is very similar, Volpe and Bobby Witt Jr.'s. So that's the type of player I see in Volpe. And I don't know if he's going to be that Derek Jeter type because he's a totally different player. But that's some big shoes to fill, regardless, as a 22-year-old shortstop this day and age. But if he does what he's capable of doing, because to me, he's a very good baseball player. That's one thing. It's not where it's like raw talent. Is he going to be good? Is he going to be successful? Guys like Corbin Carroll, guys like Anthony Volpe, guys like Bobby Witt Jr., these guys are good baseball players. And to me, it's not like a gamble necessarily, will he pan out in the big league? I think Volpe is going to have a great career. And I can't say the same necessarily right now for Jason Dominguez because obviously there's huge hype around him. With that said, as an investor perspective, I know that Volpe's cards are coming out this year, his rookie cards. So that's going to be a huge chase. But what usually happens, and we've seen this in the past with Julio Rodriguez, Wander Franco's, this kind of settles the Bowman Chrome pricing a little bit. Because right now, there's no option to invest in Jason Dominguez other than his Bowman First Chrome. Like, those are the grails. Same with Volpe. But now Volpe has 20 different rookie cards. Right? A lot of people invest in Volpe. There are a lot of people outside of the prospecting game by that point because, they're the first ones to, spike up in price anyways, right? So I think for me, Jason Dominguez would be the better investment here because Volpe is going to have a boatload of rookie cards. And I think his supply demand on his Bowman First Chromes will still command. You still have time with him. You know what I mean? Whereas Volpe's, it's like, man, it's hit or miss. He has to perform like in the big leagues. Otherwise, it's going to be a huge drop off, right? So, like, to me, it's the expectations of him doing that. I hope he does. I hope he blows out expectations, because I said Volpe is the starter. He should be the starting shortstop of the Yankees over Peraza, right? Even though Peraza is a better defender right now, better player right now, probably. Volpe is the future of the New York Yankees, in my opinion. And I think they're showing that by giving him that opening day start, right? So I'm rooting for Volpe. I'm a Volpe fan, but I'm still going Dominguez as well on this, with all that said, because of that reason, though. It's basically, for me, it's the timing of it more so than the player itself, I'd say. So I know Volpe's market's hot right now, so everybody would say sell Volpe. That's why I didn't want to make that the
Right.
deciding factor, that he's hot right now. Same with Dominguez. Dominguez market is super hot as well. So, but I think you can't go wrong with either.
Yeah, he's definitely exciting to watch. Like we had talked about, if speed comes back in the game, Volpe, like, he's just going to be a great player to watch. And if he can play well in New York, I mean, that kid's going to thrive, right? He's going to be a rock star. He's going to be a stud. So, I hope he does really well too. He's fun to watch. I like that type of game.
The downside is, like, when you put this up for pick one, he reminded me of the same kind of journey that Gleyber Torres took. Remember when he came in as a New York Yankees future shortstop,
100%.
and then he just faltered in Yankee Stadium. And I think he's playing second base now. Like, they're trying different things with Torres now, right? I remember I wanted Gleyber Torres because he played for the Yankees. He was a shortstop, and it was like $1,000. I'm like, I can't pay $1,000 for it. It's $100 now. Do you believe that?
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
Gleyber, Gleyber was a hobby like Chase in 2018, 2019, right? So, and that's what kind of worries about like the smaller body guys. Like Volpe is a smaller body guy too. Gleyber's a smaller body guy. Javi Baez is a smaller body guy. Like, these guys aren't big, 5'9", 5'10". Dominguez is 5'9", 5'10", but
he's stocky.
Like, he is in a different class, we'll say. So he's not a middle infielder, right? So that's another thing where these guys, I'm a little guy, like, considered in baseball, like, 5'9" type player. So it's like the longevity of guys like that, like going back to Gleyber Torres, in my opinion, it's like, it's hard to keep healthy and stay strong, because for me, I feel like that's where it tailed off with Gleyber, and it's so hard for him to play catch up at this point, because he was hitting 30 plus home runs as a 21-year-old. You get injured and it's hard to find that groove again. Like, you have to be very, very strong to put up 30 home runs plus a year in the big leagues, right? And a smaller body guy to do that consistently as he gets older, it's kind of unheard of. And guys like Altuve, it's just like, hats off to that guy. Like, that guy is just unbelievable, super underrated on him too. Yeah, so just on that,
That's a good one. All right, Chris, do you want to go next?
We can do it. Okay, we're turning back the clock again. We're going back to the good old heydays of the '80s here, and we're gonna bring in our Canadian roots here, fellas. So we're gonna go. If you can get a sealed box, 1987 Leaf, or a sealed box, 1987 OPG baseball, not OPG hockey, OPG baseball,
not Tops baseball either. For our American listeners, not Tops baseball.
No, so
OPG baseball,
Leaf or OPG 1987 sealed box. I love both the sets.
So OPG is like, they have some big cards in both sets, obviously, but the OPG big chase would be the Barry Bonds, I'm assuming. It would be OPG. And is this...
that's for both.
Yeah, they're both Bonds, but like, I think the OPG Bonds is a huge card.
Okay, yeah.
The Leafs Bonds is too, but I think the OPG Bonds is like a little more rare, but I could be wrong on that. But are we talking about ripping, or are we talking about holding here? Because you said sealed wax.
I know you as an investor probably hang on to it and never touch it again and sell it off and get it graded or something.
That's not me as an investor, though. That's the problem.
I would have a tough time.
I'm ripping that thing.
Hyung's a gambler.
Yeah, no
what are you talking
kidding.
about?
Yeah.
No kidding. Yeah. I mean, hey, you can do what you want with it, I guess. I mean, I love both designs.
Oh,
They're
man.
beautiful. And I think Leaf and O-Pee-Chee, the reason I thought of this one is because I think both of them are underrated. You know, they're not going to have the same print runs and everything as Topps and Donruss. So I think they're underrated.
No,
I
for sure.
actually, surprise, got in the 2020 eBay fix, and I was picking up some Bonds, Leaf and Greg Maddux Leaf cards and everything. So, I like it.
Yeah.
I like that card.
Man, okay. I'll say I'm gonna go with the Leaf. For me, I just like it, the OPG is a crazy set, but it's a little boring for me with that wood design. And like you said, like for me, the Maddox rated rookie, I think McGuire's in that Leaf. Like that's a big card. Like the Bonds obviously is a big chase as well. So I think to me the Donruss look, the rated rookie was like big for me, whereas the Topps really didn't have anything to signify that it was a rookie or anything. So I'm going to go for the experience because I'm ripping them. I'm not holding these. I'm ripping them. I want to know what it feels like to pull a 86 Leaf rated rookie, or 87 rated rookie. So I'm going to go Leaf for me. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? This is going to be quick and easy for me as well. I'm ripping too, so it's going to be Leaf. Like the diversity of cards in that Leaf set that, like I'm looking at it like Bo Jackson, you got his rated rookie. Right. Greg Maddux, you guys already mentioned, and of course Barry Bonds. So, and I love the rated rookie like that. That's iconic, the kind of the subset there. So I'm going for Leaf. Really, if I was going for OPG, like when you put that up as I'm like, OPG hockey? Are we comparing hockey to baseball? Like,
baseball.
Yeah, so it's I'm like, oh shoot, there's OPG baseball actually exists. So yeah, I'm going for Leaf for those reasons.
The OPG baseball, I think it's cool because it is more rare, right? And especially as Canadian, if it got some more love south of the border, you might find more value in them. But to me, in that 87 Donruss or Leaf design was always a beautiful set to me. I just love the baseballs on the sides, and I'm same as Hyung, that the wood board or the wood grain of 87 Topps never really did it for me. And I think it only kind of recently came to light maybe in the past few years where a lot of people really like that wood design. And that was an iconic design for them, maybe their favorite of all time, the 87 Topps. And I just never felt that. So it grew on me a little bit over the past, say, 3 years. But then in last year's releases, when every parallel was an 87 Topps, it kind of got old quick again. So clean sweep then, 87 Leaf for me. Love the design. Love that, it's the logo even on that card in the 87 designs. I like it. I like it. And
it's so cool.
So yeah, I've got a couple of the rookies in the Leafs, raw obviously. But yeah, I like the 87 Leaf.
Nice. It's a sweep, and it's funny. Like the design of the 1986, like it's classic, right? And when you're talking about the OPG, the wood grain, like it's kind of like home design, Like I used to live in a basement with wood panel on the in the basement. It was in style back then, but
Bring
it's
it
dated
back.
now.
There you go.
So, completely dated. All right, that's a good one. Okay, I'll end off the show with my pick one. So again, I'm sticking with the junk wax era theme. The Barry Bonds, we already talked about it. The 1986 Topps traded Tiffany, but the BGS 9.5, so Beckett graded 9.5 gem mint, has a pop count of 513, and it last sold for 2,000. All right, versus Mark McGuire, his 1985 Topps USA baseball team. You guys know that card. PSA 10, so it's PSA slab. Pop count's 306, and it also went for almost 2K, 1,900.
Oh, man.
So different things going on here. Different player, different grades, but the price point's similar.
You can go attack this one first.
I got mine.
Beggar.
So I'll tell you a funny story here. Back, we used to trade cards with our buddies, and he offered me a card. It's 1985 Mark McGuire rookie card. And what did he want for it? He wanted a screw down case that I had. He needed a screw down case. And I remember I was like, are you sure? Like it didn't have huge value at the time. This would have been probably around 1990 or so.
Right.
Are you sure? He's like, yeah, I would need a screw down. I was like, all right. So I traded for him. So I still have that 85 McGuire. Raw,
way.
of course.
Oh,
It would not gem up or anything like that, but still a decent card. To me, it is an iconic card. It's his only true rookie card. So as much as, we like that Bonds, the 86 Topps Tiffany, I really do love that McGuire card. So I'm going with that one. It's a special one to me, I guess. But if I had one in a 9.5 or whatever, and I had it beside my other one, it'd be a good little combo.
Nice.
Love that.
Oh man, I did I grew up watching Mark McGuire and Jose Canseco, and they were my guys. But for me, Barry Bonds, you're still on Barry Bonds, and it's Topps Tiffany. What's the BGS 9.5 have subgrades or what?
I believe so. Yeah.
Are we talking min gem or we? Let me see. Or do we have one sub 10 grade or? This is
how
gems.
we know that you're an investor and I'm a hobbyist, because I go with my heart and you're sitting here deep diving into the condition.
Well, I'm close. That's why I'm close, because the McGuire does, that card means a lot to me too. But Topps Tiffany Bonds, to me, it's any grade. That card is amazing. It looks different. It's the iconic Barry Bonds card to get. So, for me, you could get more rare cards like the Leaf that we talked about, Bonds Leaf and OPG as well. But to me, I'm still getting the Tiffany. I think, in my opinion, especially if it's min gem, then I'll have. You know what?
Decide. You're lucky, because the last one that sold March 20th of 2023, so just a few days ago or 10 days ago, it was a True Gem Plus.
Oh, and what was it? What was the sale?
2,000.
Oh yeah.
So centering was 10, surface was 10.
I would buy that right now.
Jeez.
You missed out. PWCC.
You won't see that. You won't see those too often, I don't think. Yeah. I mean, pot 500 you might, but still, I think it's a Tiffany. PSA 10 shouldn't be 5K, and then BGS 9.5's less than half. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna break the tie, and in this case, I'm gonna go with. I don't have a cool story like Beggar about Mark McGuire, so I'm going with Barry Bonds, the Topps Rated Tiffany. The BGS, I don't mind the BGS 9.5. If you're a listener of this show, I think it's underrated.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Just the value compared to the PSA 10. I just don't think the discrepancy should be that big. So I'd be happy with a BGS 9.5 of Topps Traded Tiffany with Barry Bonds, greatest hitter of all time. All right, that's it. Chris, again, thanks for joining us. Always fun. We'll have you back soon, I hope. And I'm going to tease your podcast, which we're going to launch soon, the Apo Taco podcast, where he's going to talk all things baseball development. We'll promo it here as well. So you guys will know when it's launched. And it's going to be a good listen. You got a sneak preview of how Chris is as a podcaster. I hope that wasn't too tough for you.
No, that was awesome. That was a lot of fun. So I'll be back anytime you guys want. Yeah, we're looking forward to launching the Apo Taco podcast, where we'll have guests on and a couple other baseball players, pro guys, and college guys. And like you said, all things baseball, and we'll just be shooting the breeze.
Nice.
Yeah, awesome. Can't wait for it. All right, thanks again for all our listeners and subscribers. And if you haven't rated our show and you enjoyed this episode, we'd be so grateful if you give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. All right, we'll have a brand new show for you next week. And we'll see you then. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.